Could Baldur's Gate 3 be the greatest RPG experience of all time? Have you ever wanted to play an intense and immersive game of Dungeons and Dragons, but have no friends? Well, let's get you some friends, because I have the game for you.
You've but one chance. Join me or die.
Collect your d20s and roll far too many natural ones with me as we dive into this expansive and mind-blowing RPG made by the people who brought you the fantastic Divinity Original Sin games. This game has resulted in me never wanting to leave the house. Every day I have to go to work, I just can't think of anything but getting home and spending even half an hour in this game. The last time I felt this way about a game was Elden Ring last year. It feels like an addiction. Now let's remember before jumping in that RPG literally means role-playing game, meaning you assume the role of a character and play as them however you see fit. Are they the nice goody two-shoes who would never hurt anyone innocent and helps all in need? Or the embodiment of evil who aims to hurt and destroy all who they come into contact with? I've never really been the type to spend long creating a character. Most games, it doesn't even really matter that much. Chances are I'll be wearing a ton of armor and a helmet and never see them. Plus the appearance makes very little difference to the gameplay, if any. But Baldur's Gate 3, you better hope you're paying attention and spending your sweet time creating your character, because it really does matter, more than most any game I've ever played. Oh, you've decided to choose a drow as your playable character? Well, I hope you're prepared for an onslaught of blatant racism from most races, because of the terrible reputation the drow seem to have. Oh, but there's upsides. You'll get along much better with some of the more controversial races, such as goblins. Each race has unique dialogue and choices that can be made in almost every conversation or encounter throughout the game. And with 11 races, all with multiple sub-races providing pros and cons, you could play the game over and over, forever.
Imbecile, stay back.
But let's not stop there. Choosing your class from the 12 different options ranging from barbarian to wizard, again with multiple specializations in each class, there is an infinite number of possibilities to choose from. I'm going to do this next part in the voice that I imagine the character I chose sounds like, excuse me for the cringe.
From my own experience, I chose to play as a dragonborn with one blue eye and one red eye, who is a druid and named Tyrius Black.
I'm not sure how that sounded on the recording, hopefully not too bad. As a druid, I pretty regularly had unique dialogue with animals which allowed me to either easily befriend them or kill them during dialogue if the need arose. And as a dragonborn, I had dialogue options focused around a dragonborn's ideals and morals, allowing me to use this to convince certain characters to do or not do something without having to roll a die to convince them. I'm sure every single person who's played this game has experienced unique dialogue based on their endless hours of character creation before the game even gets started. Oh, and let's not forget the most important character creation feature, genital choice. I definitely can't show you this, but it definitely is here. But with your special little boy, girl, or other done, let's get rolling. The premise of the game is, you've been abducted by mind flayers, big squid men, who have inserted this little punk into your brain. Now talk to everyone and do everything you can to get this goddamn thing out. But nothing is ever that simple. After a day or so, most people are under the impression that you definitely should have turned into a mind flayer by now, but something's stopping it from happening. And the mystery grows. One of the most amazingly designed and implemented aspects of this entire game is the companions, up to 3 of which can be chosen to accompany you at any time. Every single one of these friends, see I told you we'd get you some friends, is basically perfect in their own way. All the voice acting, facial animations, and character motivations are fucking fantastic. I've never become so attached to a group of video game characters in my life.
It seems to be the perfect night to spend a little time together. Just you and I.
From very early on in Act 1, we've got Lae'zel, the angry and harsh Githyanki, Gale, the friendly wizard fallen from grace, Shadowheart, goth mummy and worshipper of darkness, Will, the blade of frontiers with a secret, Karlach, the one-horned, literally on fire tiefling, and Asterion, the pale elf, who is a smooth-talking individual with a taste for blood. There are also a handful more companions that are attainable later in the game due to certain story decisions, but I don't want to spoil them for you. Each of these companions will join you with their own built-in class, but these can be changed for a small fee with Old Mate Withers. Oh, and let's not forget, if you're a horny motherfucker, So is every single one of these companions, so take your pick.
I want to taste you. Perhaps tonight, perhaps later, but I want it all the same.
It's pretty hard not to fall in love with every companion you decide to take with you. Everything they say and do is just so well done.
By the hells. Sex, my dear. A night of passion. Not with you, just to be clear. I mean, can you imagine? Ugh, no.
Different choices you make throughout your time in the game can raise or lower your companions' opinions of you, meaning they'll either fall in love with you or grow to hate you. That means if you're trying to connect with a certain friend, you have to take their interests into account as well as your own. But enough gushing over video game characters who don't exist. Let's talk about combat instead. For me personally, ever since my fascination with Pokemon back in the day, up to the last few years where playing through games like XCOM 2 and Divinity Original Sin 2, I've learned just how exciting and varied turn-based combat can truly be, and Baldur's Gate 3 takes this and just expands upon it tenfold. I have heard a lot of criticism about turn-based games, but I've never been the type to be against them, so I'm not the best person to listen to. The variety of ways in which you can approach any combat encounter blows my mind. You want to jump in, standard encounter, just toss some firebolts, swing a sword or two, and maybe shoot some arrows, not a problem. But maybe you're fighting next to a ravine that drops into the deepest depths of the Underdark. Push those feckers off the cliff, but beware, they can do the same thing to you. Are you still struggling? Well, with your strongest character, make sure you collect as many fire wine and explosive barrels as you can hold. Drop them around potential combat encounters, pop a little fire arrow or fire spell at them, and
Another parasite.
beat an almost unbeatable encounter without even entering combat. That's a handful of the nearly unlimited options and ways to approach murdering all who stand in your way. I've seen clips of people using a spell to push hundreds of chests off a high point onto a horde of unsuspecting enemies, killing them almost instantly. It's insane what you can do. But continuing on with the combat encounters, it's not just the combat that feels spectacular. Every single encounter feels tailor-made and purposeful. It's almost always a unique creature or character, the likes of which you've never seen, from the mother owlbear who pounces on you if you get too close to her baby, to the terrifying hook horrors of the Underdark who attack on sight. Every time a new enemy appears, I stare in awe at its beauty and ferocity. All the game needs is a built-in photo mode so that I can get right up close to these marvels. You'll also basically never enter a combat encounter and have an easy time. I've come across combat encounters where the enemies were multiple levels lower, and they've still given me a run for my money, and in some cases, beaten the crap out of me. This is because they all seem to have their own unique abilities and quirks, meaning you'll never know what to expect from every encounter. Ghasts who can be revived every single turn from their undead masters, giant spiders who can phase jump around the battle arena, making them impossible to pin down, or a big robotic man who can activate an electric force field around himself, causing damage to anyone who hits him or gets too close. Every single combat encounter fills me with excitement and dread for what exactly is going to happen. Many of these encounters, and also a majority of story beats, new areas, and dialogue, are preloaded by or take place within a cutscene. Which, first of all, for a CRPG is pretty outstanding by itself to even have cutscenes. But what makes it even better is just how f***ing good the cutscenes are, holy shit. Whenever a cutscene starts, I just can't wait for what I'm about to witness. You want a Spider-Man wielding a magic torch to murder his goblin companion? We got it. You want a Githyanki riding a red flame-breathing dragon to blow up a bridge and murder a bunch of people? Alright. How about a horde of mushroom people singing and swaying together? Yeah, why not? I would play this game even if it was only a visual novel with never-ending cutscenes. They're just so good and enthralling, and with the voice acting being as good as it is, I just can't drag myself away from them. As expected, after or during most cutscenes, you'll be given various dialogue options which can drastically change both how the cutscene and the overall game unfold. A very early example of this is a squirrel who lunges and bites your foot. Did that squirrel upset you by doing this? Kick it into a bloody pulp into a tree. But for me, as a druid, I spoke to the squirrel, found out what was wrong, and was given a reward for doing so. Oh, and let's not forget the fact that most options that have an impact involve you rolling a d20 to decide whether you succeed or fail, which can quickly turn some encounters from a friendly hello to a battle to the death if you fail the wrong skill checks. Certain negative dialogue choices or options can even lead to your companions leaving you permanently or even attacking you, so choose wisely.
Skva! Do not defy my queen!
Obviously, all of this dialogue has a big impact on the game's story and outcome, but so do your actions, the people you choose to side with or against, and the timely manner with which certain dire quests are completed. The earliest settlement you'll come across is basically run and ruled by a collection of druids, who are casting a ritual to seal the grove and send everyone else who's not a druid packing, mostly tieflings. Here's just a handful of ways this quest can be completed. You can help the tieflings escape and make their way to the big city. You can find the missing leader of the druids and stop them. You can steal the druid's idol, which they need for the ritual. You can meet up with the local goblins and help them invade the grove and kill everyone. From what I can tell, this is only a few of the variety of solutions to the druid's grove problem. I could give you many more examples of other quests or scenarios that provide even more options, but where would be the fun in spoiling it for you? Another small event where you can save a tiefling child from a gang of harpies can be failed without even finding him, as if you spend too long walking around the world before discovering the location, the harpies will kill the child without you being any the wiser. The child can also die during combat if you don't protect him, and of course, saving the child will have some benefit as expected. These are the smallest of options in the expansive and insane variety of different ways quests and the game itself can be approached. I haven't yet encountered a single quest that didn't feel engaging, impactful, or important. You can hardly tell the difference between side and main quests, as they often intertwine or have major impacts on the world as a whole. Now, if you've watched me before, you know that I'm an absolute sucker for a sexy environment, and oh baby, this game delivers with rich, varied, and detailed environments, with so much vibrancy and colour, so many secrets and hidden areas to discover if you spend your time exploring. I love this shot that I took so much, it's now my desktop background on my PC. Between deciding to leave Act 1 and actually leaving, it took me almost 10 hours as I just kept discovering things I hadn't seen before, or finding whole new underground dungeons or areas with hours of content. Once again, I need an official photo mode, just so I can drool over this world and the intricacies and vastness of every single area. I'm almost certain you'll be seeing Baldur's Gate 3 on a majority of Game of the Year lists this year. At this current point, it's for sure my frontrunner, and in all honesty, it stands a good chance to cement its spot in my top 3 games of all time, which is super exciting for me to say because that doesn't happen very often. I'm sure you have your own ideas of whether Baldur's Gate 3 is one of or even the best RPG of all time. With some of the RPG greats out there, it's hard to definitively state if the question asked at the top of the video is true. Personally, I strongly think that it'll go down as one of the greatest RPGs of all time, and a golden standard for future RPGs and video games in general. If you are playing Baldur's Gate 3 right now, or if you've already finished it once or even multiple times, I'd love to hear your opinion on anything that stands out to you about this game, anything you've been dying to talk about, literally just anything Baldur's Gate 3 down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more, because I just can't get enough.